Hello and welcome to the CNBC-TV18 special. We're coming to you from Davos 2025, and as I've been telling you here on the program, there is a different approach that India has taken, and here's what's new, here's what's changed. It is an all-in-one. So you have, of course, the central government here, headed by Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw, who's here with us, but you also have India being represented by states, but the states now are all housed, well, technically under two roofs, but nevertheless, it's an all-in-one approach that's been taken. Mr. Vaishnaw, many thanks for joining us. This is a first that India is doing, and this is what's different this time around. Take me through what was the thought process here.
Well, the thought process was that India Pavilion should be unified pavilion. It should be integrated. And our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, got this feedback last year after last Davos. And he insisted and he gave us a very clear thought process that we should have all the state pavilions integrated within the India Pavilion. Then we spoke to the chief ministers, and all of them were very happy to actually be a part of this thought process. And that's why we have this entire India Pavilion.
Yes.
One unified, one integrated pavilion.
Absolutely. As I said, technically under two roofs, because you have Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, and the third one over here was...
so logically it is one.
Yes, that's right.
The same
that's
thing.
right. And then, of course, you have on the other side, you have Telangana, UP, and Kerala. But Mr. Vaishnaw, let's start by talking about the pitch here that you continue to make to investors in an AI-driven world, in an AI-led world. You've just finished a roundtable with people in the semiconductor space. Yeah. What's the feedback that you're getting? What's the status update on semicon?
So the confidence that people have on our government, on our policies, on our leadership is huge. What we can see very clearly is people had a lot of skepticism a few years ago, but now they are very clear that India is having a consistent growth. India's policies are very clear. Prime Minister Modi ji's entire thrust on having a very strong technological base in our country is very real. So people today in the morning, they were saying, just 3 years back, we heard that there is a semicon program starting in India. And today you have 5 units where the construction is in very advanced stage. And the first chip will roll out in this year itself. So that gives a lot of tremendous confidence to the people. So we just had a small kind of announcement that Inox will be the materials partner for Micron as well as Tata's, and that's a very big thing because we were used to manufacturing in parts per million. Now we have to manufacture chemicals, gases in parts per billion. Yes. Purity, right? Yes. So that requires tremendous investment in R&D, in your manufacturing capabilities, in the process purity. So all that thing is happening now. So that gives a lot of confidence. The second thing is people know that we have a huge AI talent pool in the country. And people have taken very strong note of the approach that we have taken. We have taken this approach of having public investment to create a AI 10,000 GPU compute facility, which will be available to everybody. So I heard in the morning session as well as yesterday and in this session also, people really like this facility because the startups don't get the opportunity to have that compute facility. And in our case, because our Prime Minister always says that we must democratize technology. So democratized technology means it should be accessible to all. And this is one construct that we have been able to very successfully create. So this was also highly appreciated.
You know, you're talking about the compute power and, of course, the 10,000 GPU order that the government has put in place, and the RFP, of course, is out also. But I'll ask you about the big announcement that's come in from President Trump overnight, and that is the $500 billion Stargate fund, with Sam Altman and Masayoshi Son and Larry Ellison and others getting together. When you see capital of that kind, Mr. Vaishnaw, and you look at what India's aspiration is to play in the AI game, do you think we need to do much more in terms of portioning capital, for especially on the infrastructure side?
That's very true. But of course, even in that, rather I would say, every project which is happening across the world today, India is a big contributor to that. Our talent pipeline is the biggest pipeline that we have, right? And the quality of talent is improving every day with the Future Skills program, with the way the industry is so closely integrated with our talent development program. So this is another thing that we heard from multiple number of meetings that we have had, that this whole idea of integrating industry and university system is very good. So that's being appreciated. So yes, we definitely, our approach of having the 10,000 compute is great, but definitely we need to do much more. We are also looking at, we are actually evaluating, developing 25 chipsets which are critical for our industry, critical for our strategic needs, where we can have those chipsets designed in India, then fabbed in India. With the fab coming up, we are looking at the next phase of the fab. We are right now working at 28 nanometers. Can we have that next level 14 nanometer where the IP also is vested in our country?
Right.
So we had very good discussions today morning, and the approach that the Japanese have taken probably will take the same approach, where we partner with some R&D institutes. We have shortlisted 2 of them, already have some MOUs with them. Take that IP from where it stands today and build upon it. So multiple things are happening. So that's why I would say that in every program which is happening in the world, India will have a major role.
Major role, but just on the capital, sir, do you believe that Semicon 2.0 will require a higher allocation?
We are working on it, and our approach again, as you would have noticed, right from day one we were very clear that ecosystem has to be developed, which means the gases, the chemicals, the equipment. So we will be focusing a lot more on the ecosystem this time. We'll have a lot more allocation and a lot more focus on getting the chemical and gas manufacturers properly settled in India, established in India. And we'll also do a lot more on the design side. So once we have the fab, then the right time to have our own products in place. That will be the focus of Semicon 2.0.
Okay, let's talk about the other big development, in which is President Trump in the White House. Of course, the External Affairs Minister has met with his counterpart in the US post the inaugural. We have the ISET between India and the US, which focuses on the partnership on critical and emerging technologies. What's the expectation? There was a lot of progress that was made on these areas under the Biden administration. What's the hope that you have now with this present regime?
I think this will accelerate the fundamental point of Prime Minister Modi ji's thinking in terms of technology, in terms of economy, in terms of foreign policy is trust. And trust is a very important element in our relationships with US, with Europe, with Japan, and that has really helped us get the MOUs and MOCs signed, because people really believe that yes, India is a country, India is a geography, it's an economy which can be trusted. And that trust is going to accelerate our cooperation, I would say.
So what would the expectation be? What would be the focus areas that you would like both sides to prioritize when we talk about technology?
So critical minerals will be a very important priority. Then we would have quantum, we would have AI, the way models are getting created and the way models will be used in future. Can we have more focused models which are suitable for our own needs, for solving our problems? These will be important. Semiconductor supply chain, value chain will be a very important part of it. Apart from that, many emerging technologies where we can contribute a lot through our talent pipeline. They will also be part of the, and research, where we have last year we decided to take up some joint research programs. That will also be a focus area.
You talked about some of the countries that we enjoy a trusted relationship with, but let me talk to you about China, because that has been, of course, a fraught relationship, but there is now a movement as far as the border-related issues are concerned. Will that lead to engagement on the economic side as well? And I'll ask you this in the context of the aspiration that we have for electronic production in the country. We've done very well on that front in the last 2 years specifically, but there are now concerns of perhaps a slowdown on the part of the Chinese from the movement of people point of view, as well as components. Do you believe that there is a need for engagement on the economic side with China?
As our External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, has said, it's a very complex relationship where the governments of both the countries are deeply engaged in finding the right way forward. What I would like to say is that our next step of having the component ecosystem in India, that's progressing very well. We have completed the entire structure of it, which are the focus areas where we would put the maximum energy on. And what has happened, you would have noticed yourself since you do that very interesting program of Young Turks. So you would have noticed that quite a few supply chain partners, quite a few Indian manufacturers have really gone up on the learning curve. And the confidence that many of these players have is phenomenal. I was just talking to the HP laptop manufacturing, the head of that company, HP, Mr. Lores. He said that now we are feeling so confident within such a short time frame of 2 years that we would like to set up a complete R&D facility, complete design facility in India now, along with the partners that they have selected. Same is the case with the HP Enterprises. Server manufacturing, the HP Enterprises chief told me that they are now ramping it up to almost 4,000 servers a month. And the entire design work will be done in India. So what I would like to say is that the learning curve challenges that we had, let's say 5 years ago, 7 years ago, that is significantly lesser now. Yes, there would always be, when you want to start something new, it will have its own challenges. But I think our country, our industry, and our policy framework is today capable of taking it.
Well, talking about policy measures and PLI scheme for the electronic component space has been talked about. Is that likely to be announced anytime soon, sir?
We are working on it and very extensive. As you know, we believe in extensive consultations with the industry. So that consultation process is practically in its last rounds. I would like to announce it once it is approved by the cabinet. As you know, that's the right way to do things.
And how soon before you take it to cabinet?
I think it should be, we should be able to launch the program in coming couple of months time frame.
In a couple of months time frame. So that's as far as the electronic component PLI is concerned. You know, when we were here in Davos the last time, sir, you had spoken about why you believe that there was legitimate reason to bring down import duties on some components, and that continues to be the ask from industry on more components and a tariff reduction in general. With the Trump regime in place, do you believe that the need of the hour will be to preemptively look at what we can do on tariffs across the board?
It's more of simplification and having lesser number of slabs so that the confusion between one component to other component is not there. As you know, in electronics, the way components can, so each component has to pass through multiple borders by the time it becomes a module. So that means a component with, let's say, another very, very small subcomponent added to it can change the classification. So what we want is a very simple, very clearly defined classification system. And we'll continue to work on that direction.
So not a rate reduction necessarily?
That comes as a part of it.
Okay, so that will be, so a rate reduction as well as simplification is what you're hoping for?
So yeah, it's a more complex thing than these two words put together.
I would imagine. But is it likely to be linked to the budget?
Let me not speculate anything on that. But yes, we are constantly engaged with the industry.
Okay. You know, let me also ask you this in terms of what you're hearing from industry and as the former telecom minister, you know, the AGR issue continues to be on the table, and one is hearing that perhaps the government may provide some relief there, even though there are Supreme Court rulings against that. Do you believe that there is a need for the government to look at further intervention to provide some relief and support when we talk about the outstanding issue of AGR? Reports certainly seem to suggest so.
You'll have to ask this to Mr. Sindhya.
But as the former telecom minister, what do you feel, sir?
I wouldn't like to comment on that.
Okay, fair enough. Welcome back. You're watching our conversation here from Davos 2025. We're talking to Ashwini Vaishnaw, who heads the delegation here for India. Mr. Vaishnaw, we were just talking about the progress being made as far as the AI mission is concerned. What will be the priority in 2025?
So, three topmost priorities will be getting the compute power ready, where we have completed the RFP process, and very soon the price discovery and everything else will be in place. Second will be talent development, as you have seen in the other programs on technology. Our focus on talent development is very much aligned with the industry. So in case of communications, we had labs, 5G labs set up in 100 universities so that the students can get the real hands-on experience of working on 5G technology. In case of semiconductor, we have it in 240 universities where students are actually designing chips using the latest tools. Same thing we are doing in AI. So very large number of universities we are tying up for getting the AI readiness as well as AI research and getting the application experience. That's the second thing. Third is a very interesting approach, getting the data sets ready for AI, right? We have large data sets of non-personal data, transportation data, we have agriculture data, weather data, logistics data. How can we use it to create data sets which are ready for AI? That's the third thing. Outside these three top immediate priorities, we are also working with the industry to understand how we can have our own models, what kind of models we should prepare. Should they be general models or should there be focused models?
Right.
And in parallel, we are also working with the industry to look at, in a time frame of 3 to 5 years, can we have our own GPU?
Okay.
And all these developments are happening in a very systematic, very methodical way. Hopefully in a near time frame, near future of let's say 6 to 8 months, we would have crystallized these thoughts on model as well as chip. But the other parts, we are moving ahead in the execution phase.
Let's also talk about the rules that have finally been put out by the government, and of course the consultation process is on for the data privacy and protection rules. There has been feedback that's come in from industry. There's been feedback that's come in from the side of the advocacy groups as well on balancing the interests of consumers and citizens. And I was speaking with the secretary, and he said, well, if both sides are unhappy, then it means that we've done something right. But how do you look at the feedback that's come in, and do you believe that you may need to extend the consultation period before you notify the rules?
We must understand one thing, that the rules are basically within the ambit of the Act.
Yeah.
And the Act was drafted with very, very extensive consultations, going over many years, in fact. And the consultations led us to a framework which is the right balance between innovation and regulation. And I think even here at Davos, people have noticed it, and people have, in fact, somebody has, a very senior person has actually said it, that this is the template that the world will follow now. It won't be the GDPR anymore.
Because you believe that stifles innovation.
That stifles innovation, you're right. So within that ambit, the rules have been framed. And so far, the feedback that we have got on rules from practically every stakeholder is very positive. A few tweaks here or there, that's all that is needed. Otherwise, everything is... See, the approach is very practical approach, very commonsensical approach. The approach is that technology will change. We must not hardcode things. We must not make things prescriptive. We must, as the Act was, we must have the rules also very principles-based.
Right.
And as you know, it's a complete digital implementation. Yeah. So that entire framework has also been prepared. So I think we are in good shape.
Okay. Let me move from digital infrastructure to real infrastructure, and that's the physical infrastructure. And that's where the government has been doing the heavy lifting as far as CapEx is concerned. And that has been, of course, driving growth in the last few years. Do you, believe that that is going to have to be something that the government continues to do, because private CapEx is still, not at the level that is required for us to be able to drive the kind of growth rates that we aspire for? And specifically from a railway standpoint, what's the expectation as far as CapEx goes?
You have three questions in one question. So I would like to take the third question first. Railway, our capex, we have already done about 77% of the capex for the year by now. It's progressing very well. We should be able to complete 100% capex program somewhere in the middle of March, so which is very good. And the progress on the grassroots at the ground level is very clearly visible. Our mobility has improved, our punctuality has significantly improved, safety has substantially improved. We are able to carry more people. Last year we carried about 695 crore people, and this year we'll be doing about 750 crore people. We carried almost 1,600 million ton cargo last year. This year we'll be doing 1,630 million ton cargo. So that is very good growth, and that is helping us meet all the costs that we have. Electrification is practically about to be completed, and the pace of construction is very good. Station construction, coverage installation, everything is, I would say that it's as per our expectation it is going on. On the first and second question that you asked, see, our economy in our GDP, because of the policy paralysis of the UPA government, the investment, capital investment as a percentage of the entire GDP had gone down to as low as 27%, 28%. That has now steadily come up in the last 10 years, and today it has already crossed 30%. It's now 31%, which means in an economy of about 300 lakh crore rupees, 31st March it will be 320 lakh crore. In that economy, 30%, so 90 lakh crore, right? Government capital investment is about 11 lakh crore. So 90, 11, right? That's the balance is the private capex. That balance part is private capex.
Right.
So people must, I would request the economists and others to do this math before saying that private capex is not there. Private capex is there. Yes, it must have a much greater pace.
Right.
It must be much more broad-based. And that's our approach. That's the way our finance ministry is driving the policy. That's the way our finance minister and the Honorable Prime Minister is driving the entire policy paradigm. I think it's a very steady growth. I think it's a very steady economic policy. Today morning we had a session with many funds. Most of the funds believe that our trajectory is very steady in a good 6 to 8% real growth rate with moderate inflation. So most people believe that yes, this is a good strategy, a good consistent growth rate that India will have.
And the policy will continue to be with the government spending on government capex and growth being driven by government capex, at least for now.
So that's the that I would say is one of the triggers.
Right.
But other triggers like manufacturing, the triggers like housing, the drivers like getting the innovation and efficiency, the productivity in all those triggers all help in growth of GDP.
So let me end by course. Let me end by asking you, Mr. Vaishnaw, before we let you go, what will the headline be then for 2025 from an India standpoint?
Trusted country, very clear, very stable political regime, very stable policy regime, good focus on inclusive growth, what we have done in the last 10 years, yes.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck here in Davos, and thank you very much for joining us here and for explaining to us the areas that you will focus on and what some of the opportunities that the government hopes to leverage on will entail in terms of policy action and policy measures. That was Ashwini Vaishnaw, the man who is leading the Indian delegation here at Davos 2025, giving us a snapshot of what the year ahead looks like. We will take a break. There's a lot more coming up with our conversations that continue here, but don't go anywhere. We will join you again from the World Economic Forum's annual meeting right after this.